The following video was actually recorded a little bit. Okay, it was actually like a couple of weeks before Kevin Samuels passed away. And I kind of sat on it because I had a little bit of a timeline of other videos I wanted to edit and upload, and kind of put this one on the back burner because a part of me actually wanted to re record it. But considering the fact that I won't really have much of an opportunity to record videos like these for a while now, and going to be kind of transitioning to more screencast videos for the time being, I figured I'll post this up for you guys and, something to kind of hold you guys over while I, rebrand and figure out new ways to make videos. So hopefully you guys will enjoy this one. And remember, the context is I recorded this before Kevin Samuels passed away. So it's a little bit kind of dead as advice is concerned, but hopefully it will still give you guys something critical to think about, particularly the young ladies that wanted to criticize Kevin Samuels. So if anyone makes any comment about the fact that Kevin Samuels has already passed away and this is kind of useless, I will know that you skipped this first minute into the video and that you're actually stupid. So hopefully you guys will enjoy this, and without further ado, here you go.
So, I find it particularly interesting, no I don't, that a lot of women seem to not be able to effectively argue against Kevin Samuels. Now, it's entirely possible that I am just vastly more intelligent than most people, and so I'm able to see the flaws in this argumentation of how high-value males are able to exert their options and everyone else just pales in comparison to just how incredibly intelligent I am. But honestly, I really don't think I'm that smart. Not that I don't think I'm smart, but I don't think I'm that much smarter than most people. And it is really strange to me that I haven't seen any young lady. Which isn't to say that there aren't any, but every single time I see women try to argue at this point, they just do a really crappy job. I've never seen any of them just kind of hit Kevin Samuels with the one argument they'd ever need against the nonsensical idea, and it is nonsensical, and I'll define why, that high-value males are not cheating, but exercising their options. Now, the mere fact that most conversations ever revolve around high-value males when they are a fraction of society and thus do not reflect the main issues and problems of crafting an environment of men that can't have families is a little goofy to me. Let's just address it, regardless. Because honestly, that is kind of its own thing that needs to be discussed. But we'll table it, like we always do. So, I'm sure you guys have seen this several times. The boys at Fresh and Fit like to say this too. That there is a basic, simple reality of the world. And that basic reality of the sexual marketplace, so to speak, if we're going to use this analogy, is that high-value males, men that have lots of resources, money, social status, and have been earning it consistently, have lots of options when it comes to the type of women they want to have sex with. I think that's incredibly obvious, and Kevin Samuels likes to point this fact out to lots of women that desire to be with high-value males in some type of sexual relationship. He then tells them that these young ladies need to make concessions to be with this male. One of those concessions being is that this high-value male is going to be exercising his options. He's going to be having sex with other women, and she just has to accept that. And because he is providing for her, and because, he has basically made a life where she kind of wants for not, it should be acceptable, or it's okay, that he's doing this. And that woman needs to get on his program. In fact, I'm sure you guys have probably seen consistently in the whole lifestyle dating guru area that you as a male are supposed to craft some type of lifestyle, and then that woman is supposed to come and get under your program and fit your script and kind of basically do what you tell them to do. Now, considering the fact that this is basically an abusive relationship that's just a little bit softer. Legitimately it is. I have this power, and if you want this, you have to capitulate to my desires. That's what it is. And I know that's going to hurt a lot of different guys' feelings, especially the Fresh and Fit sausage boys that just love those guys, and the guys that are really going to bat for Kevin Samuels. And to be fair, I mostly agree with Kevin Samuels on a lot of different things, but there are some main issues with, I think, his message that need to be criticized, this kind of being one of them. In fact, this being one that kind of loses the plot a lot when it comes to trying to convince young ladies to be a little bit more reasonable about their expectations with men. The thing is, I don't even know where to start with this one. Let's start with this. So, I see lots of ladies combat this point with kind of next to nothing. I don't really have very many counter arguments that lots of ladies like to bring up, because they don't really have counter arguments as much as they just say that it's kind of not fair and they don't like it. Which I think is a bit obvious, because who does like being cheated on? I think one of the first things you kind of have to understand is the reason why this is such an undermining proposition to grant to women is because women, they kind of already are motivated just kind of by their sexual availability to men. And I know a lot of ladies probably won't want to define themselves as such, but I'm pretty sure in the back of their minds, and sometimes in the forefront of their mind, they kind of recognize that a lot of their value on the sexual marketplace value is based on their ability to have sex and just basically how sexually attractive they are. In fact, that's how a lot of them compete with each other, and that's how a lot of them kind of metric their basic power level. Not necessarily their socioeconomic success, although some of them do like to do that as well, but it's mostly based on just how much they can get men to capitulate to them sexually. That's how a lot of women measure their power. And when you tell women that this power kind of doesn't really mean anything in a sexual relationship with the man that she actually wants, I put that in quotations to challenge it in a moment, but when you put that against her, you're basically telling her that nothing about her actually is worthwhile, and her relationship with said high value male kind of isn't really a relationship. It's kind of just a basic transaction where you kind of just have to accept the fact that you're just a trophy being used today, maybe even a baby incubator, but you're not really a wife. You can't ever actually really be a wife, because a marital contract is null and void the moment said high value male has sex with another woman. Its entire purpose is defeated the moment that occurs. Now, the truth of the matter is, lots of women, a lot of women really, it's not all of them, but a lot, are definitely going to accept these parameters. They're not going to like it, but they're going to accept it. And the way women accept lots of abuse whenever they're with the man that they want. Again, I put that in quotation marks because abuse relationships are a little bit more complex than like women are just attached to them by desire. Some women are under duress, and some women just think that that's kind of just the best they're going to get, so they have to accept the terms and conditions. That's why I say the whole high value male thing is kind of basically just abuse. But here's the thing. The women accept these parameters because, again, the cost-benefit analysis is that the high-value male has the status and money and resources and the lifestyle they want. If he cheats on her, that's okay, because she gets more material benefits. And if she can just accept the fact that he's going to have sex with other women, then it doesn't matter. Now, of course, these are also the parameters that Kevin Samuels and the boys at Fresh and Fit will like to display, what they like to kind of put out there, right? Now, for me, I oftentimes find this to be a really, really, really strange that young ladies can't just counter-argue this with two arguments, the only two arguments they would ever really need to discuss why this is absolutely asinine. And those two arguments is as simple as this. With great power, there must also come great responsibility. It's that simple. That's all you have to say. That's all you have to say against Myron. All you have to say against Kevin. All you have to say against any man that says this. Any dude that says that high-value males are exercising their options. All a young lady ever has to say is, with great power, there must also come great responsibility. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Yeah, you can exercise all your options. It doesn't mean you should exercise all your options. Now, of course, young ladies can't make that proposition. They can't say that, because that would mean that they'd also have to adhere to the principle that with great power comes great responsibility themselves, which is why they never invoke it. Honestly, what really oftentimes gets revealed in these conversations that Kevin Samuels has with these women is the fact that, one, they never really actually address why they want the high value male or why they need the high value male. They oftentimes are just more, I guess you could say, besmirched and put down as to why they don't deserve a high value male or why they shouldn't be with a high value male or what it takes to be with them. Never really addressing philosophically why it's important to try to foster such a relationship to begin with. In fact, most people don't actually really consider why is it important to have any relationship with the opposite sex, or rather, I think I should start saying the complementary sex in the first place. And I think the answer is pretty obvious. It's how you make families. I mean, the answer is obvious, but no one actually really addresses what it means to be someone, to be crafting a family, and what it means to be having strong relationships with each other. For as much as Kevin Samuels loves to say that he is talking about the family, most of the time he's only ever really coming to bat for high value males. And in fact, most of the women only ever talk to Kevin Samuels so they can get in touch with and fix their relationships with high value males, which is only like the top 10% of the population, which definitely is not sustainable for a functioning society. But again, we're jumping too far ahead. The reality is, if we really scale this back down to what I was saying before, any woman can honestly say to any idea that these men should be able to cheat or exercise their options, is to just respond with great power comes great responsibility. Just because a high value male can have a lot of sex with different women doesn't mean he should or he needs to. Now, sometimes Kevin capitulates and says, just because high value men can doesn't mean they should. Sometimes he'll talk about the fact that high value men should also be coupled with virtue every now and again, but it definitely is not the main bulk of his message, and it absolutely is not what these women are walking away from every time they get done talking to Kevin. So I will give him that. He does talk about it sometimes, but it's not the main bulk of whatever he's discussing. And in fact, it's never the forefront of the definition of what makes a man high value to begin with. But the reality is that any young lady should just be saying that if a man decides to marry me, he doesn't need to have sex with other women. He can just come home to me. Because honestly, a very important question does need to be asked. If a high value man does have a wife, why does he need to have sex with other women? Why doesn't he just go home to have sex with that woman? And I find it particularly interesting that, again, I've never seen a single woman, maybe they're out there, maybe I missed that episode, but I've never seen any of them just say, Kevin, he married me. If he married me or has a relationship with me, he should be having sex with me because sex is mutually beneficial to the both of us. Women don't oftentimes look at sex as something mutually beneficial. In fact, most of the time young ladies look at it as honestly like a gift or a grace or a favor that they do to men, as if they're not an active participant in the activity. And if you're a young lady and you're not an active participant in the activity, there's something really wrong there. Like really wrong. But of course they never bring that up. And again, the reason why they never bring up the fact that sex is mutually beneficial and should be used in the confines of the relationship that she's having with him and he's having with her is because, again, sex is the bargaining chip. Sex is the transaction. And if sex is the transaction, if sex is the thing you're giving to get, you can't really renege on that and talk about its mutual beneficial properties. It kind of looks a little bit like hypocrisy. The hypocrisy being that, well, him giving you money and a lifestyle is not mutually beneficial to him. In fact, him giving you resources is a detriment to him. Now, of course, high value males that have an abundance of resources probably feel like it's a little bit of a dent, and you'll see lots of women comment upon the fact that men that have lots of money don't really care about spending it. I mean, that's a bit obvious as to why that would be the case, but again, the reason why women can't really criticize that point is because, again, their view of sex with men is a transaction. And basically, they're prostitutes. Like, there's lots of... The modern woman has a very prostitute-like mentality on sex and sexuality. Despite the fact that they don't ever really actually admit it, they do. Very many of them don't look at sex as mutually beneficial. But that would be a really strong argument to use against the nonsense that high value males should be exercising their options. And no matter how much you can say men like variety or men need variety, there really isn't much of a grand difference between women's WAPs. Like, I don't, anyone that says that there's such a grand difference, honestly, they're probably over exaggerating. And even if there was, the question is, is it enough of a difference to constantly need to find lots of different women until you die? Probably not, which is another really strong argument that any of these young ladies can make. Why does the high value male need to constantly have sex with different women? I mean, even if it's a small bleed, isn't it still a bleed on the money that he's making that he could invest in anything else? Of course, I guess the response is it's a little bit of money, so it's fine to blow it off on the occasional prostitute or escort here and there. But again, the total need of investing money in something that you already own, which maybe own might not be a good word, but something you already have access to would be much better, does just look goofy. But then this kind of brings us to what was originally actually the second argument that anyone would really need to bring up when it comes to the idea that high value males are exercising their options. And that second point is, if any man knows that having sex with other women will hurt his, I hate to say, main chick, he shouldn't fucking do it. Game, set, match. If you love someone, you shouldn't do things you know is going to hurt them. If said high value male does indeed love this woman, why is he doing anything that's going to hurt her? And in that sense, I have asked this same question to young ladies, bar none, my YouTube channel probably since its inception, right? If you know this activity is going to hurt your partner, why are you doing it? The answer to that question is probably really complex. There's probably lots of different reasons, lots of different things that we can go into. But the important thing is, when we're having this discussion, specifically on the high value male's need to exercise options and the woman's need to stay in her monogamous relationship, you can find the clear hypocrisy that's oftentimes spouted by these same dudes. That they get to have lots of sex with women, but women have to remain faithful to their men because men are territorial. As if women aren't territorial of the father of their children. I mean, at least you would hope that women are territorial to the father of their children, the main protector and provider and wisdom, or I guess you could say teacher for a better word, to her offspring. You would think that that woman would kind of want to monopolize him for her children. But of course, this argument is never presented. No young lady ever presents the fact that if any man really loved a woman, he's not going to do something consciously to hurt her, to aggrandize himself. Because, make no mistake, nobody has a whole bunch of promiscuous sex for the other person. Nobody is graciously or selflessly having a bunch of sex with strangers because they just want them to feel really, really good for a night. No one operates like that. There might have been one person in the history of humanity that operated like that, but you didn't meet them, and none of these people that espout this nonsense of high value males exercising their options are those people. None of them are. So even if that person does exist, they're not the people talking about high value males need to exercise options. They're just not. So, with that front being said, if this behavior is mostly selfish and only used hedonistically to make the high value male feel better about himself, why would he participate in such an activity if he knows it's going to hurt his wife? The answer is because he's selfish and perhaps psychopathic. But the correct answer is he should not behave in such a manner regardless. Which again is a very simple argument that any woman could employ, but they don't. And I think the reason why they don't employ it is because they don't actually recognize the purpose and function of why relationships are important, or even why she wants a high value male to begin with. The reason why relationships between men and women are important is very simple. It is the model and framework of which we create more people. And those more people, our children, are helpless and can't fend for themselves. So they need men to know what it means to be a man. And young boys need women to know how women are as people and how to relate and operate around them or talk to them. In the same way, daughters are exactly the same. They need to relate to their fathers to understand what men are and how they relate to them. In the same way, they need their mother to teach them how to be a young lady in a given society. Our children are incredibly helpless, and they're like giant little sponges that just absorb any type of information or any type of like behavior in front of them. They need us to protect them. That's the importance of having males and females come together and having family units. And if anything, that's probably one of the biggest reasons why humanity is such a powerful force just in existence alone. We have a heavy investment on our children. And the thing that's really goofy to me is, for as much as Kevin Samuels loves to talk about the fact that he's here trying to crack families, this behavior does not create families. Random, promiscuous escapades with escorts or attractive women or models or whatever, when you have a wife that needs you and when you have children that look up to you, is not a good thing. And it never should be espoused as something that women should just accept. I know I spend a lot of time criticizing women for the way they treat men, because they deserve it. But this doesn't mean that men should then become people that mistreat women. We're supposed to be better for each other. I'm not saying we all need to be superheroes. I'm not saying we all need to be the greatest human ever walked the earth. But to me, I think it's a little bit goofy when we keep having conversations about male-female relationships where one party just mistreats the other like they're garbage or like they're not important. Because the reality is you can't simply say that the only way men express their love for women is just by providing for them. In fact, that's a really bad expectation to put on women anyway. I've seen Myron and Kevin as well say that the way men show their love for women is by providing them things, coming home, setting the table, or not the table, but the expectation. But it's like, yeah, that's one way we express our love, but it's also our devotion. It's also our selflessness. It's also our protective nature. You know, to simply say that men show their love just because they give women things puts women in a position where they really do become even more materialistic. And they think that just because they're getting something from men, it means the man cares. Really, it just grooms them into being really easily abused and taken advantage of by men that have a lot of power. And this is probably one of the biggest issues I find with the whole conversation of ever focusing on high-value males when they make up a fraction of our society. The problem is that you can't craft an expectation, a shitty expectation, number one, of a small margin of people when the vast majority of people are the ones that actually need to be able to have these functioning relationships that work to keep our society going. But more than that, you're basically just grooming a generation of young women to just accept being given things so men can do any type of behavior, even if it hurts them. And again, no matter how crappy a lot of modern women are, that doesn't mean that we should be fine with people just being mistreated, no matter the circumstance. And I know it's tough to have empathy for young ladies when they do a bunch of stupid, silly shit. I totally get that. It's not lost on me that it is difficult. However, I still think that it's important to recognize that we need to have virtue and we still need to treat each other well, even when it gets hard. And that's why I wanted to create these arguments, not even create these arguments, but just kind of point these arguments out to say that no matter what, with great power comes great responsibility. If you're a high-value male, you don't get to just have a bunch of sex with women, especially not indiscriminately. And the bill most definitely always comes due. So you probably might want to be a little bit more cognizant about sticking your dick in a bunch of random thoughties anyway. Because, as I have said numerous times, if you don't value these women, why are you doing this stuff in the first place? If anything, I would say that that's a rather huge indication that there's a big problem with that man. But I guess we'll have to talk about that some other time. So that being said, I assume that you guys got something out of today's video. I doubt it. But if you did, go ahead and click the like button. And shoot, go ahead and click that subscribe button. Comment box below. And as always, you guys have yourselves a great day. I'll see you cool cats soon. Adios.